Gundam.tk presents HG Dorado. Hey again everybody, it's Robert184, 2Rs2Bs, GundamReviews.net, and my look at the high-grade Dorado, the new generation of bad guys from Gundam Age's second generation continues. You've seen the unbox and the plates and all the parts, and now it's time to take those parts and turn them into this perhaps fearsome grunt bad guy. So I thought I'd show him off here before putting on the beam tail, and overall I've got to say that he's looking pretty good, and that's thanks in no small part. I don't know how well it's coming through with the camera and the lighting in here, but anyway, that purple I think is going to look fantastic. This dark gray or the black is going to be the same as everything else we've seen on the UE, but I worried about this waist section just being a little bit too busy, but so far the skirts there I'd say are certainly a good thing. It's cool to see these Adidas stripes back there in terms of the thrusters and on the backpack, and you can actually see these things here in the front, and when you combine that with the fact that he's got a better sculpt than I'd say any of the UE suits except perhaps the back toe, I'd say that overall the visuals, good so far. Putting these triple Vulcans on are a cinch on either forearm. Although you're probably better off swapping out the manipulators here just so that you can have these ones. They just fit nicer here inside these guards. With the beam rifle tail on, you've got that third point supporting it here on the ground, and that's a good thing sometimes because the ankles have been a little bit problematic. They do have good seemingly posability, but so far they've just been not that great in terms of standing him up, especially if you wanted to have him here without this propping him up. They'd probably have a lot of problems with that. Overall, I think once you've added the weapons, his balance is going to completely change and you're going to see some very skinny legs. The forearms are going to bulk out, although the shoulders seem a little bit small, and that tail, of course, is really going to add that UE flare, but he looks quite different armed up than I think he did without. For posability, you can move the skirts up independently and bring the leg forward for a 90-degree kick. It's not going to go off to the side because it's on a hard polycap. You've seen that the knee can bend and the ankles. You can see them moving around here. They'll move ever so slightly front to back, but it's just very hard to get this part to line up, which is going to cause your problems when you're just going for regular ground poses. The upper body can rotate around here as it's on a ball joint. It'll move forward and back ever so slightly. The arms can rotate. You've seen that the shoulders can bend or rotate, and you can also bend the elbow up there. So far, these triple Vulcans aren't getting in the way of anything in terms of actually doing poses. The head is just on a polycap 6 there, and so that means it can move forward and back. Be careful that you don't knock out that antenna fin. So far it's doing okay. The rear skirts haven't gotten in the way of anything, and nor have those side skirts. They're pretty much just hidden there. But on the back of the tail, you've got a slight joint there inside. This can bend up and down, but not all that much. I'm talking about this black part bending here. This part can bend up and it's going to come in. It won't bump into the backpack there. And you can see that it can bend there. And remember that this can stretch, so it can rotate off to the side, no problem. But you're not going to get all that much mobility. But we've gotten pretty used to that with the UE suits. Straight to the comparisons where you can see the Gafran with its huge skirts there, which are just going to protrude, and you can bend them out of the way a little bit, but not all that much. I'd say that the Dorado overall, his legs, you can't really see the Gafran's legs, but are going to look a little bit skinny, but these shoulders are really cool, and I'd say that his chest section is going to look better, and those weapons on the forearms are certainly going to be more interesting than the Gafran, who looks like he just has skinny arms. Compared to the Zetas in its pre-R days, I've got to say that I think the Dorado is actually going to look a little bit better there in terms, it's got that simple color scheme and only the 2 colors as opposed to the 3. I'm not really counting that jewel there, but the Zetas just seems to have a lot of protruding things, whereas the Dorado just has that cleaner look overall. And did the back toe just exist so that Flit could show off the power of the Titus? I have to wonder because we didn't see much of it after that. But in terms of pure visuals, I've got to say that this was my favorite of the UE suits, although I wonder if the Dorado is going to give it a push now for that title. And finally on to this generation, you can see that even though the Age 2 is supposed to be a normal size Gundam, that the Dorado is going to be a lot taller and overall filled out, and what looked like skinny legs here look to be about the same size as the Age 2, but that upper body, certainly the edge, has to go to this side. To the posing where the legs are going to be pretty flexible, but you've always got to worry about that tail, but then again you can also use that tail to help you keep it propped up. The triple Vulcans, you're not going to really notice them as being weapons because from a pose like this, you've got the weapon side on the other side, but anyway, it does still look like he's got something shooting out of his fists, which is more than you can say for the Gafran. Again, propped up by the tail, if you have both of them blasting forward, you can actually have him lunging, and that head and the green eyes, every once in a while, you're going to catch the light just right, and they are going to look pretty good. To get the beam rifle... When you bring the beam rifle around, you can see that I'm having a little bit of weight issues here. It's just started to flop down to the side a little bit. And here you can also notice that it doesn't really have a grip or anything, and nor is it going to sit at a very natural angle. So you can't really have the hands. It would have been nice if they had a natural place for the hands to rest and hold here. It may look better up in the air, but so far for the ground pose, this one is not that exciting. The over-the-shoulder is going to be a lot more natural fit. It's going to work better in terms of gravity. You can actually put it in between those two fins there and have it go beside the head, which isn't going to look terrible. But it looks more natural with these hands on to hold it in place, if you want to call it that anyway, and it just works at better angles. The connector there for aerial poses is going to be attached to the waist, although it looks like it's on the tail, certainly further back than we're used to on most high-grade kits. Now this is almost the same pose, but the legs, you're not going to have to deal with those floppy ankles anymore, or I mean the fronts of the feet, which are going to cause all those problems. And again, it's sort of interesting, the balance is going to very much change because it's not attached in the regular place for high grades. But overall, up in the air, I think that this over-the-shoulder pose is going to be very cool, and it actually looks like a decent bad guy at the moment, I'd say. But I can't stress this enough that most of these underarm poses are just going to be, they're either going to cause this thing to fall out in the back or these parts to fall off on the back. Nothing about them are working particularly well. This seems to be just about the best that you can get. So I'm going to wrap up my look at the mobile suit. It would have been a lot more fun if this actually had some beam weapons to come out of those hands. But stay tuned for the next and final part where I'll give my verdict on this kit as a whole, all the good and bad things that I can think of. But of course, don't let that stop you from writing down your own ideas down below. What do you think of the MS design? What do you think of the model? And what do you think of this video? Always great to hear from you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Robert184. I hope those guys' tails aren't anything like the way they were used in Avatar.